So this isn't going to be some short where I'm just zooming through everything or a quick video. We're going to sit and we're going to talk about, for one, the strategy, for two, what the dividends are going to be this month, and for three, we're going to go over YieldMax because it has announced its dividend. And I believe it was roughly around 70 something cent a share. So let's talk about it. Around this mark here, 28,000. So what that spread across is NVIDIA. We could see Tesla, which this is actually Crash, I believe. We can see Tesla. We can see Misty. And we can see right here, this is YieldMax, I believe. I'm not used to looking at this layout here. This is Squarey, and this is AMZ. So if we come back to Robinhood, you can see I have 689 shares of AMZ. Now, I'm not sure what AMZ is going to do on this next upcoming month. I know they've been announcing some huge dividends. I'm hoping for around the same price or for around the same payout, but we'll see what happens. But in this scenario, what we've been doing is we've been ripping off the top any profits. So if I go into NVIDIA, because NVIDIA has been doing really good this week compared to the rest of the rest of the market's been really down, and especially like AMZ and YMAX, those funds have been down, except after hours. I've noticed that these funds seem to skyrocket after hours. But if we look at the week here, we can see that it's been riding up. And this whole time, we actually can look at the month because I've owned it for quite some time now. This whole time, I've been ripping profits off the top. So even if this specific fund here were to be down, I would technically be up. For one, they've paid me dividends. For two, I've been ripping profits off the top. So really, even though we actually are green here, I'll go to another stock for an example. Even though we are green here, we're actually even more green. So I believe this month I've I've made roughly around $1,700 on the portfolio, even though the dividend payout is only about $1,000 a month. Now, I do have track your dividends pulled up here. We'll just exit out of this ad. You can see that my income has actually went up because we've leveraged that margin into buying more shares that are going to pay us every month. So if I come in here and I hover over this one, had I owned the same amount of stocks that I do now prior to June's payout, I would have made roughly around $1,400 a month. Now, what this is projecting me to make in the month of July is $1,200 a month. So, and that continues on. Now, that all depends on what AMZ is going to announce, what Misty's going to announce, what NVIDIA's going to announce, because all of these, I believe they all pay out the 6th, except for YMAX, which is actually, I believe it's the 17th is when they're paying out. And we'll look at that in just a second here. But this portfolio, roughly, this is always a rough estimate because I don't have it directly integrated. I manually put in these stocks. This portfolio is roughly valued around $27,000, $28,000, making me an estimated anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400 a month. Now, when I started these videos, I was roughly around $700 a month, but when I ripped those profits off the top, I dumped the profit back into the portfolio, which is core compounding, and I did get that strategy from Oracle, YieldMax TV. Both strategies that I'm implementing here in my portfolio being AMZ and Crash and Tesla, the Tesla sandwich. So, but the reason I'm not going all in on AMZ or Tesla or Crash is because we're riding these highs and these lows in other markets. So when AMZ's down or when AMZ's up, typically these are not doing the same besides maybe YMAX, right? So what I'm doing is I'm ripping profits off of various other funds to dump back into other funds that are down. So it's a very similar strategy to the core compounding like YieldMax is doing, but we're ripping from various other ones. So I'll use NVIDIA for an example here. While we've been riding these highs, I definitely believe NVIDIA is a fad, right? It's because they implemented a stock split. The stock price has definitely reflected this. People are loving it, and I'm all for it. But I do believe that this is a temporary thing. as we can see here, it hits these moments where everybody loves it, and then it draws down really heavy. And so people that bought in back here just in March are just now making their money back on the actual price of the stock. Now they've been paying dividends the whole time, of course, but yeah, but I have been ripping, and so my average cost is not going to be accurate, right? I mean, that's we're bound to botch our average cost because we're ripping profits off the top and dumping right back into it when it's down. So it's never going to be truly accurate. But to me, this number does not matter as much as my actual value, because my core number for NVIDIA is 2,000 a month, or 2,000 that I want to hold. So as long as this number stays the same, this number does not mean as much to me. So we've been ripping the profits off the top the entire time, specifically with NVIDIA and Misty. So we'll actually take a look at Misty here too. So you could see it's been hitting these highs and lows, the whole time. We've been ripping and buying, and it hit a down spot here. So we'll actually look at the 1 month. So you can see this is what we've actually been experiencing. We'll actually look at just this week, because that's specifically what we're talking about. So right around this time was when I believe I bought in a big chunk, a larger chunk than I believe my initial core number for this was 1,000, and I upped it to 2,000 because I could see it riding. So we also got in around here, and then we buy and sell during these times. Now, I'm not talking about day trading or anything like that. This is the week view, so we're looking at maybe days and intervals, right, where we can see that it's going down, 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 and you buy more and you sell more at the same time when it's going up. Now, I do believe both Misty and NVIDIA are going to be temporary holds for me. I've been riding the highs and riding the lows just to generate more income so I do not have to invest actual monthly income into this portfolio. It's going to generate and fabricate that money for itself. So let's take a look at Crash, because I have not ripped anything off of Crash yet. So we can see here we've got $7 in profit. And, I'm not necessarily worried about this, but, really what the Tesla sandwich is going to be doing for me is just covering my actual Tesla, or my Tesla sandwich is going to be covering my Tesla when it's down. So if we look at the week view, Tesla's actually been going up, and I believe I bought it around I bought one time at like 15.10 and then another time at like 14.90. So, somewhere in there. I think I've bought a few times just with Tesla specifically because it's not an inverse. I don't have to buy in full shares. So like Crash, for example, we have to buy in full share quantities. So that's why it's a rough number and just an exact share amount of, I think I bought 102 shares to try to get me to that 2,000 mark, because I wanted the same amount in each stock, both Tesla and Crash. So with Tesla, I have ripped a couple of times, I believe, it was small amounts, like $7 or something like that. So that generated a little bit more income on this specifically, but we're also down on the actual value we've invested. If we were to take this number and average out our entire portfolio, it would say we're down, but this is not incorporating us ripping profits off the top, nor the dividends. So that's just a little bit about my actual portfolio. I know some things have been changing, and I've been making shorts about some different stocks and go all in and things like this, but to sit down and talk about it and actually discuss the strategy is what we need to do also. So, I'm not a professional financial advisor. I don't advise anybody to just dump all of their money in this, but you can learn from me and do with that information as you will. So if we come into track your dividends again, right, we see an annual income of $14,000. Now, to have my money, making money, leveraging debt is a beautiful strategy, and this number is going to keep climbing. And this number is only representing my dividends. So we'll say right now my annual income is roughly around 16,000 because I've ripped. That's not including any dividend announcements like AMZ saying, "Hey, we're announcing a $1.10 per share." Well, that's not, talking about me ripping 20, $30 a day or something like that, or maybe it's 100, right? So just rough estimates, strictly numbers, we're looking at roughly around 16,000 in annual income. Now, this is going to keep climbing, like I said before, because I have not leveraged this entire buying power. We are going to be going 100% on margin to give me more shares and keep ripping back into it. So the core compounding method is definitely working for me. We're seeing the upsides of it. Now we've seen moments of downtimes. So like AMZ, for example, here, or YieldMax, sorry, for example, here, we can see that just today, now the market's closed, but it's been going down. Now, if we look at the week view, we can see that it hit this dark turn. Okay, so we see that the rip strategy covers you in moments like this because you're riding these highs and these lows, buying back in just to increase share amount that's also going to be paying you dividends based on your shares. That's what matters. This is completely unique to every trader. So my number right now is 3,000 for YieldMax. Your number might be, 500, or it might be 20,000. So my number right now is 3,000. Now, typically, had it not been the weekend and me not being as active on a Friday, I would have bought in for another 100. But, YieldMax is announcing their dividend, which I believe it should be on their website now. And the reason I like YMax is because YMax, there are they hold all of their different funds inside of YMax. So we can see here, this actually was declared 73 cents per share to be paid out on the 17th. So let's just take a look here. I'm probably just missing my shares. 148 shares. So give or take, we're going to make roughly around 120 bucks just on YMax. Now, we have been ripping off of YMax and getting more profit. So that increases our monthly income. Next, I do want to talk about my next moves with NVIDIA. Specifically, has been on a stretch here. So look, we can see these big highs and these big lows. So I do think this is going to be a temporary stock, strictly because of the fact that, for one, the only reason this is performing like it is right now, I believe, is because NVIDIA announced a stock split. For two, markets do this all the time where they just hit this big run because people are talking about it, and then it goes back down to your average price of, I'm assuming this one will go back eventually down to about $23 a share. That's a rough, educated guess, but that's what I think is going to happen to it. And I think it's going to last roughly about 2 more months. So let's look at NVIDIA and specifically what it paid out over these past couple of months. Let's see here. If we go to NVIDIA, we look at, last month they paid $2.50 a share. So, and they do have these moments where, since NVIDIA specifically has been doing really good, I think they're going to announce roughly around this number. If I had to guess, it'd be probably around the, 220 mark, $2.20 per share. But it has been on a good stretch here, so they might announce more. Roughly what they've been paying. Well, this is exactly what they've been paying in the past per share. So we're hoping for that, but it might not happen again. So in short sense, I do believe this is more of a temporary stock. Now, it's not going to be one of our long holds like AMZ. So if we take a look at AMZ, let's see here. AMZ. Now, if you were to average these out, they haven't paid the highest dividend every month, but they've been on a nice little stretch of announcing a pretty decent dividend, and I do think that they're going to be around this same price this month. So if we were to be getting paid, let's just say $1 a share, right? And I own of AMZ, I own 689 shares. So roughly around $689, or if they announce a lower dividend, we're still probably going to be sitting around the 600 a month mark. So if they announce on the low end, we're probably going to be sitting here at this 1206 per month in monthly paying dividends. But if they go above and beyond with their recent announcements, we're probably going to be sitting around here across the entire portfolio, 1400 a month. And this is going to be going right back into it. So I'm not taking these dividends and putting them elsewhere. I'm putting it back into the portfolio and snowballing the portfolio. So on top of ripping my profits off the top, we're taking that money and putting it back into the portfolio. And then we're getting paid monthly dividends, and we're taking that money and putting it back into the portfolio. Because after a dividend announcement, the stock price always goes down. So it's lower. So that's when we want to buy in. So right now we have 22 in the portfolio, when originally in actual cash, I believe it was only around 20,000 that I actually put in of my own money. So we're already in the green. I think it was roughly around 21 actually. So 21,000, let's just say, I put in originally into the portfolio, and you can see that the amount that's increased is already, give or take, $1,500. So that has been with no additional money put in from my pocket. That's been all internal. It's generating its own cash. So whether it's ripping, whether it's dividends, it's generating its own cash to snowball it into being a larger portfolio. But this is going to be used here shortly. Now I have used some of it and made a couple of videos about it, but if it depends on what the market's doing, but I believe around next week, I'm going to be leveraging all of this margin, or at least a large portion of it, into the portfolio. So if you guys have some more strategies or some more points that you want me to cover in another video later on, feel free to drop it in the comments and leave a follow. And I will talk to you guys later. Peace.